then start the webinar. Please be patient with us and allow us just like a couple of minutes to start it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being patient. Let us quickly go ahead and start the webinar. Before that, I would just like to, introduce, Unigaksha and also our mentors. So first of all, let me just throw some light on what Unicaksha is and how do we help candidates, right? So we are an online education providing platform that helps students and working professionals to upskill themselves in the tech career, or probably somebody who is not from tech background and wants to make a career in tech industry are definitely welcome here. So we help the candidates with our top mentors and industry vetted curriculum. So far, we have had a positive impact in the careers of more than 5,000 students. And today with this Guru class, we hope to help you in the same manner. Right. Let me also just give you a quick introduction about our experienced mentor who's going to actually take you through to the session today. So the topic for today would be step-by-step guide to crack coding interviews of top product-based companies, right? So we do understand that, getting a job in the product-based companies is a dream of almost every techie. So, and clearing the interviews is, equally difficult as the, it's very difficult to crack the interview of top tier product-based companies. So here we'll present you a guide as in how you can go ahead and prepare yourself, step by step, or maybe for every process, every round. So Swati, our mentor, she's going to help you, assist you with all the details about this particular process. So just a little about Swati. So Swati Yadav is one of our experienced mentors who have overall 8+ years of experience in Java FSD web development. She also have 2 years of experience as a certified trainer in Java, web, Python, data science. She have handled classroom delivery and curriculum development for K-12 segments as well. For the same topic, that's web and Python and Java full stack development curriculum as well. And now she's working with us as a trainer, as one of her experienced mentors, right? So she's the one who will take you through. Swati, over to you now.
Hi, very good morning, everyone. Saturday morning, right? So today for our topic, as you've already been introduced to the topic, it's like, how to crack a coding interview of your top product-based companies. Now, I take it that it has been your dream to get into these top product-based companies. You can say, Google, Facebook, Amazon, etc. And every engineer, whatsoever, coming from any tier college, we share this dream, right? This is like a profound excitement in landing an offer with their dream companies. So if you're someone who've tried but failed, or someone who just have to, begin now, uh, and you've just only graduated, you're not alone there either, because everyone, we, or I could say the engineers, we have this same kind of dream of working in good product based companies. And if you're deciding to give an interview in the coming months, as the hiring is again going to start, maybe in the coming of the months, this is the time for these companies. You are one of the several many engineers in the fray over here. So the thing is, tons of candidates, they apply to these companies across several roles, and many of them are excellent programmers, but still only kind of like a very small percentage of it, let's say around 5% of it only makes it to these companies. I'm not saying that you're not a good programmer, that's why you weren't selected, maybe, but somewhere or the other the strategy was not correct, maybe, to prepare yourself for these companies. So in order to crack these interviews, you must be ready to chalk up the hours, you see. And if you don't pace your prep, you will be outdone by the competition. So each one of them, each one of us, I would say we have the same skill set. You might be a Python FSD developer. The same teammate, you have someone else in your team, he's also a Python FSD developer. The skill set is the same. But how do you make utilization of that skill set, and your time management will decide where you are going to land in your next couple of hours, maybe. Right? So even if you are an experienced programmer, you must know that the question asked at these interviews don't quite, pertain to your line of experience. There are many and many, rounds of interviews which happen. You might not be prepared for each one of them, right? Even though you're a good programmer, that is what I'm saying. So whether you're a front-end engineer, a machine learning expert, you will be only asked questions around data structures if you're applying for top product-based companies. System design and behavioral attributes. Okay. So here what we are going to cover, the agenda is the breakdown of the interviews, how to prepare for them, and what are the helpful tips and hints, that we could provide you, maybe like general tips for you guys to ace these interviews. Okay. The first thing that we might start from is, the whole session will be covering the interview process. What should be done to, kind of ace, succeed in these technical interviews and these tier 1 companies. What happens during the interviews over there? How can you manage your time, maybe? And maybe the final, thoughts and tips that we can share with you. I hope the agenda is clear. Yes? So there are many other companies that you can target for top product base, like if you might have heard of Dropbox, Airbnb, Lyft, and many more. The list is actually quite vast, right? So let's see how we can begin on it. Okay. Now, the first thing which comes is where you have to pick a programming language. Okay. Picking a programming language is actually a very important and kind of like a deciding factor. Okay. Before anything else, you need to pick a programming language for your algorithmic, coding interview rounds. So most companies, they will allow you to code in the language of your choice. The only exception I know over here is Google. They'll give you kind of like options from Java, C, C++. No, I don't think C is there. C++, Python, JavaScript, and Go language. For the most part, I recommend using a language that you're extremely familiar with. If you are someone who's been coding all along through your life, through your career journey, I'm talking about, with Python, stick to that language. If you're someone who is most comfortable with C++, stick to that particular language. That is going to land you somewhere. If you're someone who thinks, I can take up several different languages at one time and be a master of all of them, that's quite a difficult task, at one point or the other. You can know, that is what I'm saying. You can know several different languages, you know. You can know C, C++, Java, Python, JavaScript, Swift, Ruby. But then what happens is, if you're not able to master one language, that is not going to land you anywhere. With just the basics, you cannot perform all the application development. So stick to one language, which for which the ins and out of it. You can be familiar with other languages, but one needs to be kind of like the fixed one, the go-to, that everything, you can do everything in that particular language. Okay. Now, there are some languages that are more suitable than others for being, for these coding interviews. Then there are some that you want to absolutely avoid. Okay. Most candidates, they pick up Java or Python. Other languages, they might select JavaScript, Ruby, C++. So C++, Java, Python, I think that is the most preferred one. So I would avoid some low-level languages, kind of like C or Go, okay? Because they simply lack the standard library functions and data structures over there. But if you're someone who's familiar with Java, JavaScript, Python, data structure is already included in that, right? So personally, for me, it is, Java and Python, the de facto languages, that I kind of work on. Maybe, and also if ever, I'll go for any interview, I'll choose among these only. Okay. Then again, why? Because it has a huge library of functions and data structures. They have a huge library, both Java and Python. So another top reason that you can go for Python is that it uses, there are APIs. It uses consistent APIs, okay, which operates on different data structures. Like it has a len function, the foreign, the slicing notation, and whatnot. Reversing is very simple again. So you can achieve a lot more with just a minimal syntax in Python. Java is also a very decent choice to go for. But one thing, if you are familiar with Java, then that won't be a problem. If you're starting with it and you have a experience in Python, stay with Python. Then that is what I'm suggesting. Here in Java, you'll have to constantly declare types in your code, right? We declare that. It means there are extra keystrokes there. This will slow down the speed at which you code and type. Okay. Now, C++, again, people, they choose C++ as well, okay, over Java or over Python. So ultimately, Python, Java, and C++, these are the decent choices that you can go for. If you've been using Java for a while and do not have time to become familiar with other languages, I recommend sticking to Java itself and learning everything about it. Okay, everything. It's not just about the basic, or you could say programming fundamentals that I just know about, loops and switch statements, if else. No, about every other thing which is there in Java. Okay, that is for your coding rounds, the basics one. Now, this helps you to avoid having to use one language for work, another one for interviews. Okay, so there has to be, kind of like a balance. Sometimes candidates, they are aware of many such languages. They think they know each and every language so very well, and they get confused at the last moment. They try to show off, that I know Java, I know JavaScript, I know Python, I know everything about these languages. And when a question comes up to them, they choose a language which they're not comfortable with, just to show that, I can do it, but still it kind of hampers their performance over there. Just stick to a gut, I'll just say, okay? And get familiar with one language. at the most if it's still starting. Okay. So one exception, I could say, to the convention of allowing the candidates for picking their own programming language, what they want, is when the interview is for a domain specific position, right? So mostly when you're applying for any entry level, there what happens is they tell you that you can pick up any language and you can start coding and explain the concepts. But if you've applied for some domain specific positions, like you could say just the front end, iOS, or the Android engineer, you need to be familiar with the coding algorithms in JS, Objective-C, Swift, Java, respectively. Whatever is the role requirement there is, right? So there you not have a choice, but that is, you know that you've been working in this domain and you're applying for the same position, kind of like the same, domain, and then you'll be working with that. So if you need to use a data structure that the language does not support, sometimes it could be a queue or a heap in JS. You ask the interviewer if you can assume that you have a data structure that implements certain methods with specific time complexities. We have time complexity and space complexity. So you ask the interviewer, okay? So if the implementation of that data structure is not crucial enough to solve the problem, the interviewer, kind of like usually allows you to do, because there in your critical thinking also comes into play. They're able to see how you will be able to manage these complex situations if they come in. So in reality, being aware of existing data structures and selecting the appropriate ones to tackle the problem, okay, to tackle the problem at hand is more important than knowing the integrate implementation details. That is what I'm saying. You know how to means how to select which data structures and where to apply it in that particular problem statement is more crucial. The implementation, obviously, you might not be aware of it, but you learn gradually. Okay. So identifying the problem is an utmost, kind of importance over there. So the first thing is for any coding interview is that you know your language well. Okay. Then comes is where you review your CS 101. Now, what is CS 101? Just CS fundamentals, which you've done. Okay. So if you've been out of college for quite some time now, it is highly advisable to review the CS fundamentals every now and then. Okay. I personally review it as I practice. So practice is also where, you kind of take up a question, start solving the questions. There also, you'll be reviewing your CS fundamentals. I have tons and tons of notes with me from my college days. Whatever notes, I used to make, I still have them. I would like to go back to my course and, take a sneak peek, because I made those. I'm most familiar with them, right? So I don't jump onto YouTube tutorials for that, maybe for revising, but then I refer my notes. Okay. For, I revise the various algorithms as I work on the algorithmic problems. Okay. So I practice from lead code. We make up our own questions. Okay. And whatever questions, are assigned to the students, to the candidates, we ourselves, we first solve it, right? Then only we can give. So if, how to start with this CS 101 is getting to review your data structures again. Okay. So to have a practice, hands-on practice on data structures is actually very important again. You cannot leave data structure behind and become a very good programmer, because data structure has to be implemented everywhere. Without data structure, how will you manage the data? So CS fundamentals is of utmost requirement again. Okay. Now is the time for poll 1. So let's take up a poll and see how engaged are you guys with me.
So there is a poll that is there right in front of your screen. And the question goes like, identify the topics under data structure and algorithms. You have four choices here. The first one goes as strings, followed by trees, loops, and graphs. So yes, the answer will definitely let us know how engaged were you with Swati when she was taking the session. So make sure that you answer it correctly. We just have few minutes, few seconds left for the poll. It will end soon. So kindly go ahead and answer the question. All right, let me just see. All right, so I think we require a little more attention from you guys so that you can basically, get benefits of this particular session, and it will be helpful for you in the future. So yes, a little more attention required. And also, we have this Q&A option open here. So in case you have any questions, please do put down in the Q&A section so that we can take it up towards the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Swati.
Okay, now moving on, you see, I gave this question just to check. Okay, I gave this question just to check what you remember from DSA. So becoming thorough with DSA is super important if you want to stand a chance in clearing these interviews, right? So this component makes up about 80% of the questions which are asked in these top product-based companies. In order to prepare yourself thoroughly, pick the right resource, okay, and stick to that resource. Picking up the right resource, learning from the resource is very important. There are several resources which are available. We provide DSA, preparation as well, placement preparation as well, and picking up and choosing the correct, help and the resources are also a crucial, kind of step in cracking these interviews. The list of topics that come under, the question was supposed to be on that, right? What, which topics they are included in data structures. And the list of topics that you'll have to go through in DSA is strings. No one picked strings. String is part of DSA. I think the next was trees, which was fair. Loops is not DSA. Loops is a programming fundamental. It's kind of a fundamental structure that we have, logic control, looping structure for that purpose. So the answer was strings, trees, and I suppose there was arrays or graphs, something like that. Okay. So there are topics which you have to go through in DSA. If you are confused, let me tell you what are those topics. Like strings, you have linked list, you have queues, arrays, stacks, programming approaches like greedy algorithm, backtracking, dynamic programming, recursive programming. Okay, bit manipulation, sorting, searching, binary search, trees and graphs. There are many more. Okay, so DSA is very important for you guys, for any of us, not just you guys over here or anyone going through or present in this webinar, but for any programmer, it's important. Then again, the next thing, practice. Gain familiarity and mastery of the algorithms and data structures in your chosen programming language. Okay. It's not about just choosing a programming language. You know what is there in DSA, but you're doing nothing about it. Constant practice, continuous practice will only take you somewhere. We'll put up a question. If I say put up one question over here from DSA, you might take more than, required time to solve it right away. Okay. So practice and solve algorithmic questions in your chosen language. Get familiar with the language, start doing DSA, and also practice as much as you can. So while cracking the coding interview is a good resource, I kind of prefer solving problems by typing the code itself, letting it run, and then seeing what's the output. Okay. So you have to practice. For my experience, I kind of find many good questions coming up on lead code, right? You might have heard of lead code. So I also, find that resource, that platform very helpful, even for my practice as well. Okay. So there you'll find questions which are most similar to the questions which are asked in the interviews. So it's kind of like if you practice enough of the questions, there is a good chance that you will either see or complete one of your actual interview question when you'll appear in those interviews. Okay. Learn and understand the time and space complexities of the common operations in your chosen language. Okay. So learn about the time and space complexities as well. So whichever way you want to go with whichever language, these are some, the fundamental things that you have to go for. Okay. Then let's talk about the phases of any coding interviews. Now, if you've done the top 3 things, now you're ready, to put your skills into use or to practice. So in a coding interview, you will be given a technical question by the interviewer and you will write the code in real time. There'll be someone who will be, kind of auditing you, proctoring you, and, there'll be a collaborative editor, that has the, the interviewer also has an access on it. And you have around 30 to 45 minutes to complete or, solve the problem. This is where the real fun begins. Your interviewer will be looking to see that you meet the requirements of the role or not. It is up to you to show them that you have the skills. Initially, it may feel weird to talk while you code, right? That happens. Even if you're a programmer, when we work and there is something that, a segment or a module that we are working on, we usually work in kind of a secluded environment. That is my way of working, maybe. A fun fact, I like to work on my code at night, where there is so much of peace, no one to disturb. So it could be kind of a different environment for some other person as well. So it's kind of weird sometimes, when you code and there is someone who's, judging the code, looking at it, telling you maybe where you are going wrong and so on. Because as most programmers do not make a habit of explaining out loud, we do not explain out loud while writing. We just write the code, put some comments, and then next day we present it to the team, we did this task, it's completed. That is how we do. That is how I do. Okay. So that, but in these interviews, you have to think out loud. Think out loud means while you're writing, you have to speak as well. You have to share the logic. You will not just write the logic. You have to share, you have to speak up the logic as well. So that the interviewer can understand what is your thought process over there. Okay. Because it's hard for the interviewer to know what you are thinking or what you want to do or implement by just looking at your code. So you have to think out loud. So if you communicate your approach to the interviewer, even before you start to code, you can validate your approach with them as well. You'll have interviewers, those who are going to discuss the problem with you as well, and not just straight away give a question. They discuss, they discuss the approaches that can be applied. Help you as a team lead, they help you with a question. And then they ask you to code for it. Okay. So they let you choose which will be an acceptable approach over there. Now, the interview process, it has kind of like different phases. Okay. Landing an offer of, with the top product-based companies is difficult, but not impossible. And in order to crack the interviews, You need to be completely thorough with DSA, algorithms, system design. Okay. So system design again. So if you're applying for maybe the first time, so it's like the entry level job. They don't expect you to have kind of expert level thought process on system design, but you know the basics. You know, while also doing enough to ace the behavioral round that they have. It's not about that kind of scored 100 out of 100 in coding and you're done for. Oh, no, you'll have another round which is called behavioral round. So most tier one companies, they have contrived a process, that fundamentally tests your problem solving skills. Okay. So naturally, you'll have to become a great problem solver if you wish to nail the interview. The process, it broadly comprises of 3 rounds. I'm not narrowing it down. I'm just giving you a broad description of it. 3 rounds. There can be additional rounds, you see, for certain positions maybe. One that you have is a technical phone screen round, After you're contacted by the human resources team, the technical phone screen round, that is the first round which takes place to, in order to advance you in the process. The technical phone screen usually lasts for around 30 minutes to 40 minutes, where you are asked to solve a fairly easy problem. They'll have like, I could say a rapid fire kind of round also they have, over the phone. They mostly happens on a, shared document or a coding platform, and it can be done in any language of your choice. For the technical phone screen, you're expected to be proficient with at least one programming language. Okay, C++, Java, Python, and C# even. Then after that phone screen round, you have core technical rounds. There could be 2 to 3 rounds even. Okay, I'm just giving you a broad classification of it. So if you manage to clear the technical phone screen round, you called on site. You go on site to appear for the core technical and behavioral rounds. The core technical rounds can be like around 2 to 3 even in total, and see to test the extent of your knowledge in data structures, algorithms, and system design. You can be asked to code on a whiteboard, a coding platform, or via any shared document. Clearing these core technical rounds at these companies and tier one companies, it can be arduous, right? Because they're back to back. So working on your own problem solving skill is the key to succeeding in this endeavor. Okay. Then comes the behavioral round. And behavioral rounds, they have become quite popular in technical interviews now, for the coding interviews. So with several top companies incorporating mandatory behavioral interviews into the selection process. Behavioral interviews, essentially what they do is they seek to understand your tendencies, your behavior in situations, and how you'd react to them in a workplace environment. Okay, your temper, again, that is being judged. So especially if you are interviewing for higher position, let's say DOE, which is Director of Engineering, and above, it's all the more important that you exhibit sound decision making, good leadership qualities, and strong emotional balance to ace the behavioral round. Okay. So these are a few of the rounds which will come to your way when you'll be applying for these tier one companies. The next is sometimes you might be able to, give an interview remotely. Okay. So for phone screens or remote interviews, we talked about the technical phone screen interview. You have a paper or a pen or a pencil to jot down any notes or diagrams, and a shared document or a coding platform will be given to you. If you're given a question about any data structure that needs to be, kind of drawn, you can use your notepads over there. Use earphones in these interviews, kind of like noise cancelling as well. Make sure you are in a quiet environment. You do not want to be holding a phone in one hand and typing with the other. Make sure that you are on a laptop as well, maybe, if it's kind of like a meet which I've set up. Okay. Try to avoid using speakers. Okay. If the feedback is bad over there, the communication is made harder again. So just see how you are conducting yourself, even in the phone screen interviews and not just the personal or F2Fs. Okay. Now, the next is your poll time. So another poll coming up for you guys.
Yes. So the question that you have for another poll is, which of these are part of coding interview process? The options are understanding the problem, select a good example case, pick the right algorithm to solve the problem, and the last option is none. You have a few seconds still left to answer this poll. Okay, let's see. All right, the poll has ended. Let's see how many of us got it correct. So I think we have a mixed answer, and majority of them has got it correct. That's nice. Swati, over to you. I think you'll be able to explain them much better.
Yes. So now the thing is, with this question, it's about, let's understand, how to consider asking the questions, maybe how to, what to do when you get the question again. Okay. So tackling question is the first thing. Many candidates you see, whenever they get a question, they start coding as soon as they hear the question. Okay. That is usually a big mistake over there. First, the first thing that you have to do is to take a moment, repeat the question back to the interviewer, make sure that you understand the question. If you misunderstand the question, then the interviewer can clarify, right? So always seek clarification about the question upon hearing it. Even if you think it is clear, you might discover that you have missed something here and there to solve it. Okay, so it also lets the interviewer have a fair idea about whether you understood the question clearly or not, or whether you were attentive to the details or not. You can ask questions like, if there is a question which requires an input, ask how big the size of the input it needs to be. What should be the range of values? What kind of values are there? Are there negative numbers, floating numbers? Will there be any, empty inputs, any duplicates? Are they allowed? You know, how will the inputs be stored? What data type can we choose? Okay. Can we go with dictionaries, strings, or, trees or graphs, whatever? So you should have, or you should question the interview. That is what I'm saying. You should question upon getting any kind of question. Don't start away coding, don't start right away the coding part. Analyze the question first. Okay, just give me a moment. Now, after you have sufficiently clarified the scope and intention of the problem, explain your high level approach to the interviewer. Even if it is a naive solution. If you're stuck, consider various approaches and explain out loud why it may or may not work. Sometimes your interviewer might drop hints as well. They do. That is what I'm saying. They discuss. They do drop hints in the question itself, maybe, and even when they're talking to you. So be attentive. during those rounds. Okay. So start with a brute force approach, communicate that to the interviewer, explain the time and the space complexities, clarify will it be good, bad, or kind of like an average case. Okay. But with a brute force, you're likely to be you having kind of a good or an average, which brute force generally it is in the worst or average only. Okay. So now when you've done brute force, your interviewer might ask, can we do better? Kind of have a good approach to implement, or have a better complexity over here. So that is usually the hardest part, because you might only be aware of brute force. But again, in general, look for the repeated work in your code. What are the repetitions where you can optimize it by potentially caching, maybe using recursive techniques, whatever. Reference that. Okay, compute it all over again. And you can provide some tips for tackling that particular problem again, but with a better time and space complexity. So only start coding after you and your interviewer have agreed on an approach, and you've given the, you've been given the green light to go and code for it. Use a good style to write your code. Reading code written by others is usually not an enjoyable task for each one of us, because again, how you're naming, what are the keywords that you've put over there, the identifiers, have you written any comments? So whenever you are writing code, please write code, and implement good styles into it. Use clear variable names, no XYZ over there. Avoid names which are single letters, unless they are for iteration, the looping variables. However, if you are coding on a whiteboard, you can avoid using verbose names. That is, on a whiteboard, it will reduce the amount of writing that you will have to do. But when you're coding, maybe on a platform, just have good variable names, clear variable names. Explain to the interviewer that what you are writing, or typing, what is you are trying to do over there. This is not about reading verbatim to the interviewer the code you are producing. Okay. Now talk about the section of the code you are currently implementing at a higher level. Why is it written? Explain that. What you are trying to achieve. Again, explain that. When you copy and paste the code, consider whether it is necessary. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. If you find yourself copying and pasting a large chunk of code spanning multiple lines, it is probably an indicator that you can restructure the code by extracting those lines into a function. Okay. However, remember the change again, the respective variables in your copied line of code wherever relevant. So sometimes it's not about, you will be making new code every now and then, but yes, sometimes even when we are working, we might have to find any solution, and we go on to different resources, try and see, copy the code from there, right? One good thing to keep in mind, remember to change the variable names accordingly of what you are using. Copying and pasting errors these are the common errors which comes in even in the day-to-day coding that we do. After you have finished coding, okay, do not immediately announce it to the interviewer, I'm done. Take a moment, review your code. Okay. Look for any bugs if there are. Run it again. That is, just make sure that it's running through all the test cases. Do a dry run of it even if you have to. Okay. Step through the code with those sample inputs which are given. So interviewers, they admire that quality. That is what I'm saying. What they usually do after you have finished the code, that is what they look for. Are you, careful enough to go through, review your code again, and, work on it? Maybe look for any common errors or bugs in the code, run it again, right? So you should be emulating a debugger as well when stepping through your code. Jot down or tell them the values of certain variables as you kind of, run through your code again. Okay. So that is what you have to do after you're done coding. When you are done with all this, then you tell the interviewer that I'm done with the question. This is what I've been working on, and this is how I'll be implementing this problem. Explain your code thoroughly again to him, and entertain the questions if he or she kind of explain ask something out of it. Mock interviews are very important again. Okay, the steps which I have already talked about, it can only be achieved with the help of mock interviews. It's not like about ek bar, you've done all the studies, now you're ready. Give as many mock interviews as you can. Okay, because it's kind of like a virtual setup for you, right? It will help you to understand what kind of questions might come up, what would be the environment over there, and will prepare you better for it. Okay, so mock interviews is again a very important step to ace the rounds. Now, when you're done with all of this, go forth and conquer, right? Start appearing for your interviews, and do not, okay, do not be kind of, we can say, uh, heartbroken, because sometimes it doesn't happen in the first attempt, second attempt, or even in the third attempt. But consistency is the key over there. Okay. So after doing a fair amount of questions and practice, appearing for the mock interviews, put yourself forward for the interviewing skills and appear for these tests. Apply to your favorite companies, or better still, get referrals, from your friends working for those companies. Now, referrals, they tend to get noticed earlier, right? And they have a faster response rate. So good luck on that. Now let's talk about some practical tips for coding questions. Okay. The more techniques you have in your arsenal, the greater your chances of are there for passing the interview. So for each topic, there is also a list of recommended questions, that you can go for and do, which is valuable for mastering the core concepts. Some of the questions, they are available on LeetCode, which I again said. We also provide a full-on placement support, with an array of questions on all the, the topics that will help you to get placed with these, product-based companies. There are a few general tips, like, you should always validate your input first. Check for inputs which are invalid, empty, negative, or, different, something which should not be given as an input. Never assume that you are giving the valid parameters, and there will be no kind of, different inputs which can be given. Clarify the interviewer whether you can assume valid inputs or not. If he say that you can, then go ahead. If he says no, you cannot, then you have to validate the inputs. Are there any time and space complexities, requirements, or any constraints? Check for those. Okay. In languages where there are no automatic type conversion or the coercion that we say, check that concatenation of the values are of the same type. Okay. After you're done finishing with your code, use a few example inputs to test your solution. Okay, test cases. Is the algorithm supposed to run multiple times? Okay, if yes, the inputs can likely be pre-processed over there for the API call. That is what I'm saying. So you have to go through, review your code again and again. Use a mix of a functional and imperative programming paradigms over there. You can write pure functions. Why? Because using of pure functions, because they are easier to reason with, and they can help reduce bugs in your implementation. Avoid mutating the parameters which are passed into your function, especially if they are passed by references. Okay, there should be a good balance between accuracy and efficiency. Fine. Avoid relying on mutating the global variables. Okay, have global variables where you have to introduce the state. Make sure that you do not accidentally mutate the global variables, especially if you have to rely on those. So generally, to improve the speed of a program, You can choose to either use an appropriate data structure or algorithm, or to use more memory. Okay. So it's like a classic space and time trade-off that you have to do and you have to think about. So data structures is your weapon. That is what I'm saying. To have a good practice and a hold on it, it's definitely going to take you places. And choosing the right weapon for the right battle is the key to the victory over here. Okay, know the strengths of each data structure, know how to implement them, know where they can be used and which one is better in that particular scenario. That only comes with practice. That only comes with continuous practice. Because you might be aware of data structure, you know there is a hash map, there are trees, there are these many kind of trees, spanning tree, BST, AVL, and so on. But if you don't know where to use them, it's of no use again. Okay. So if you're cutting corners in your code, state that out loud again to your interviewer. Explain them. What would you do outside of an interview sitting? Okay. So that is how you're going to work on it. Fine. So that is about the whole process for you guys to work on.
All right, now we have the third poll that has come up on the screen for you. So the question goes like, use pure functions because they are easier to reason with and can help reduce bugs in your implementation. There are two options, true and false. So I think this is the easiest of all the polls that we had today. Hoping to get maximum of this correct. So you still have time to go ahead and answer this question. All right, I think that will also give us a quick check on your attention as well throughout the session. So let's see how many of us are paying attention right now. All right, let us just check the answer. Oh, wow, that's amazing. 80% of us are attentive and got the answer right. So that's really great. I'm sure this session would have been a little helpful for you in terms of planning about your dream company as to how you can go ahead and prepare yourself. Let's see if we have anything else left from Swati's end, or else we'll move on to the Q&A and the final poll.
We can move on to the Q&A, Ruby. We've kind of covered everything right now. Okay.
Perfect. So Swati, there are a couple of questions in regards to the session that we had today. So here there's somebody asking, do coding interview question scores solely depend on the percentage of past test cases?
It's not about only passing the test cases, it's about the approach which you're using. You see, I talked about the brute force and kind of with the brute force also you can pass the test cases, but it's not about only passing the test cases again that you see. What is the correct approach? How you are implementing it, that also kind of makes up, whether can you optimize the code. Okay.
Perfect. And I don't know how valid this question is. However, I'll just read out for you. How much help am I allowed to ask or information that is allowed to be looked up on the internet?
During your interview, you are asking about. So if you're asking about interview, you will not look up on the internet unless your interviewer, they kind of give you a green flag for it. Okay. So you're not going to go up on the internet and just start typing and, kind of get the answers from there and give it to the interviewer. But yes, you can discuss the problem with the interviewer. Some of the interviews, they kind of tell you that you can look up. But when you look up, they again ask that what is being done over there. But generally, it's not the first go-to thing. It doesn't happen everywhere, you know. So for the internet, that is where your interview will only make it clear in the beginning that you can look up for some of the other thing on the internet. And then if you do, they are going to ask lots and lots of questions around it, what they are doing, how it is implementing, are there any other approaches, you know. So not all the questions will be solved in that particular manner, but if you have the green flag, you can go ahead and choose that path. And the help from the interviewer, you know, you discuss, that is what I say, you have a question, start discussing it with the interviewer. Okay, they are going to work on the approaches. Now I say there are, you know, recursive approach, there is a iteration approach to maybe solve a problem. Discuss those things, then see which one will suit best and go with that, you know. The green flag will be given by the interviewer itself.
All right. Thank you so much, Swati, for taking up those questions. Guys, we still have a little time. In case if you have any more questions, feel free to put it down in Q&A session. We'll wait for a few minutes for the session to end. Meanwhile, I'll just reiterate today's session. So as Swati has taken you through how important, DSA skills are to clear the interview of a product-based company, how well you need to be prepared before you appear for these interviews, right? So you need to have assistance. Not necessarily your conceptual skills are in place, your coding skills are in place that you'll be able to clear the interview. You still require a lot of assistance and a lot of preparations in order to go ahead and crack an interview of a product-based companies. So what we do at Unikaksha is we thoroughly train you, on these skills. So basically, we prioritize training you and building your base for data structure and algorithm, because DSA is one of the skill that actually makes you a good developer, right? So until and unless your DSA skills are in place, your job role probably wouldn't be that justified. And also, I would say that these are majorly asked questions in the interviews as well. So we do focus on that. We help you in interview preparations as to how you can clear an interview of a product-based company. All right. So here what we do is we actually, help you as to how you can build your resume, how you can maintain and update your LinkedIn profile, as to what kind of questions would be asked in an interview, because we train you on mock interviews and mock assessments. So basically, we help you, as to what questions can be asked in a technical round, or when you go for a face-to-face interview. So we actually help you prepare for an interview, and we have that kind of programs at Unikaksha. Many of our candidates have successfully cracked many of the interviews with the help of the preparation that we actually give them. So I will just be running the final poll just to understand how many of us would be interested in knowing more about our programs. So here is the poll in front of you. If you want to know more about it, if you want to know how you can prepare and, get help in clearing these interviews, go ahead and put in a yes. We will definitely get in touch with you, in a very short span of time. So we have this poll which still will be there for a few more seconds. So in case if you're interested in knowing about more programs at Unikaksha as to how you can, streamline your career or maybe interview preparation, we do provide good career counseling sessions. So in case if you're confused about something in terms of your career, do give us a call or maybe put in a yes, and we will help you through. The poll is just going to end soon. Perfect. All right. I think we don't have any questions from anybody. So all those people who have keyed in a yes, you can expect a call shortly from us, maybe from me or anybody from our team. So we will definitely get in touch with you for a career counseling session. And as we don't have any questions now, I think we will end the session. So thank you so very much for removing time and being a part of a session on a Saturday morning. And I'm sure that this session would have been really very fruitful for you. Thank you so very much. Look forward to see you in next session.